Hi, this is Vincent, and welcome to Right of Way, a vlog about traffic, transport, and road safety. At the end of last year, it was reported that the MMDA had submitted to the Department of Public Works and Highways a proposal to reduce the widths of lanes on major thoroughfares, such as EDSA, from 3.4 meters to 2.8 meters. They said that they were doing this to help ease traffic congestion and improve road safety. Further, it was reported that the proposal was based on studies done by the World Resources Institute. Some have gotten to calling this proposal of the MMDA a road diet. In today's episode, let's take a look at what a road diet really is and whether or not this proposal of MMDA can actually help achieve its goals. That is, to ease traffic congestion and to improve road safety. So what is a road diet? According to what I read, a road diet is a reduction in the number of lanes of a particular roadway. Typically, it occurs on a 4-lane road that is reduced to 3 lanes. And this is done again typically because the road capacity exceeds the traffic volume. There's also this other concept that I read about called a lane diet. And a lane diet is the actual narrowing of the width of a lane. This is actually closer to what MMDA is talking about. But in all that I read about road diets and lane diets, none of it spoke about engaging in these methods to increase the capacity of a roadway. These methods are done primarily to repurpose the roadway, in the case of lane reductions or road diet, or to make roads safer in the case of a lane diet. The theory is if you narrow the width of a lane, vehicles will travel slower, thereby making it safer for those vulnerable road users, such as pedestrians and cyclists. Again, nowhere in the literature that I ran across on either road diet or lane diet talks about increasing road capacity for vehicles. Now let's take a look at the MMDA proposal. The MMDA hasn't actually released to the public its proposal, so I'm only basing it on what I read in media. And again, according to media reports, the MMDA is submitting this proposal to achieve 2 main goals. 1, to ease traffic congestion, and 2, improve road safety. Now let's take a look at easing traffic congestion. By the first glance, adding an additional lane to a thoroughfare like EDSA seems to make sense in terms of adding additional capacity. But it comes at the cost of reducing the width of existing lanes. And what we know about lane width reduction is it actually slows vehicle travel. So the question is, will the reduction in vehicle travel speeds be more than offset by the additional volume that a lane can bring? I'm not a road engineer, so I can't actually answer that question. But it's certainly a question worth asking the MMDA. Have they done the studies? Have they done the analysis that would show that by reducing the existing lane widths and adding an additional lane, they would actually improve traffic volume and ease traffic congestion as they propose? That's something I think the MMDA should be answering, especially to the public. What they also said about the lane width reduction, they may want to use the additional lane for either a dedicated motorcycle lane or a dedicated U-turn lane. As far as the motorcycle lane is concerned, we already have a motorcycle lane along EDSA. While it's not a dedicated motorcycle lane, if we are to learn from the existing example, it doesn't seem to really be working. It's hard to really confine motorcycles to a single lane, primarily because, like the rest of the motorists, motorcycles have to go in and off of EDSA. And if you confine them to a single lane, they'll have trouble exiting or entering EDSA without crossing other lanes. And again, this is very similar to the yellow bus lane problem we discussed a couple of episodes ago. So whether or not a dedicated motorcycle lane will cure this, again, we don't know. It would be good to ask the MMDA to share with us their analysis of whether or not a dedicated motorcycle lane could really be feasible. The other thing that they said they might want to do with the extra lane is make it into a dedicated U-turn lane. Now, I'm not an engineer, but you don't need to be an engineer to do some simple geometry. Let's take a look at the geometry of a roadway and of a car that needs to make a U-turn on this roadway. Let's look at road geometry. Now let's take a look at the geometry of a U-turn. And we start with the turning radius. The turning radius is defined as the radius of the smallest circle that a turning car can make. So let's start with a car that wants to make a U-turn. And in order for it to make the smallest circle, it must turn the steering wheel until it locks. And on average, for average sedans, the turning radius of a car is about 5.6 meters. And this is measured from the outer wheels of the car. Now, if we were to look at the space required for such a car to make a U-turn, we have to look at the turning diameter. A turning diameter is basically twice the turning radius. So for an average car, the turning diameter is 2 times 5.6 meters, or about 11.2 meters. This is the space required for the average car to make a U-turn. Let's take a look at a hypothetical 6-lane road separated by a center median and see how a U-turn on such a road would happen in practice. And let's suppose that the 6 lanes of this road have undergone MMDA's lane diet and are now 2.8 meters wide each. Now suppose further that along this road we want to create a U-turn. So what we would do is create a break in this median line in order to create a U-turn slot, which we're so fond of doing. Remember that for the average car wanting to make a U-turn, the minimum turning diameter is 11.2 meters. So they're going to need roughly this much space. As noted below, this diagram is drawn roughly to scale. Notice that the car will need to cut across all 3 lanes of the opposing traffic in order to execute a U-turn. So, how do we avoid this problem? At the very minimum, we need to add a center island that's at least 5.6 meters wide. With the center island, it gives a U-turning vehicle the necessary space to make its U-turn without cutting across all 3 lanes of the opposing traffic. However, this isn't the ideal solution. The ideal solution is to create a center island that's the full width of the turning diameter of the average car of 11.2 meters. You have the 5.6 meter center island and an exit lane that will take U-turning vehicles out of the flow of traffic, and a merging lane that allows vehicles to accelerate to the speed to rejoin the flow of traffic. Well, as you see, it doesn't seem quite feasible to use the extra lane for U-turns. For roads that are separated by a median line, a car making a U-turn will have to cut across 3 lanes of the opposing traffic. In order for a U-turn slot to make sense, there would have to be a median island at least 5.6 meters wide to accommodate a U-turning vehicle. The other thing that the MMDA has said about its proposal is that it wants to address road safety issues. Now, it's important to understand what they mean by road safety. Do they mean road safety for vulnerable users such as cyclists and pedestrians? Or do they mean road safety for vehicles on the road? The MMDA, it was reported that the MMDA said that the lane narrowing will help improve road safety because it will prevent or reduce the number of side-swiping accidents or reckless maneuvers by vehicles along EDSA, for example. none of this is supported by evidence. They refer to the World Resources Institute research, but it's actually not a piece of research. It's actually a blog called Bigger Isn't Always Better. And what that blog says is a reduction in the width of a lane actually reduces vehicle travel speeds and thereby making it safer for vulnerable road users such as cyclists and pedestrians. It doesn't talk about how a narrower lane width will reduce the number of sideswiping accidents or reckless maneuvers, as the MMDA puts it. What I read was, at the very most, narrower lanes don't result in an increase in the number of sideswiping accidents. Because this has been one of the more popular arguments of people who argue against road lane narrowing. But according to the World Resources Institute blog, the evidence has shown that lane narrowing doesn't result in an increase in the number of sideswiping incidents. But it also doesn't say that it reduces the number of sideswiping accidents. So on the road safety issue, as far as vehicle to vehicle, the evidence isn't there. On road safety of pedestrians or vulnerable road users such as pedestrians and cyclists, again, lane narrowing is really meant to improve road safety for the vulnerable road users. But if you think about lane narrowing along EDSA, are there really pedestrian risks or vulnerabilities? As far as I know, there are no pedestrian crossings along EDSA at ground level. All of the pedestrian crossings along EDSA have footbridges, such as the one I'm standing on right now. Or in some cases, the MRT stations serve as pedestrian crossings as well. So in theory, because of these footbridges and elevated pedestrian crossings, there should be no pedestrians on the roadway along EDSA. So I'm not too sure what the MMDA says when it wants to improve road safety with their lane narrowing idea. Again, it's a question worth asking them to see if they can answer that and explain it more clearly to the public. So there you have it. The MMDA proposal to narrow the lanes along EDSA and other major thoroughfares seems to raise more questions than answer. And I think it would be in the public interest if the MMDA could release to the public its proposal and any analysis or feasibility studies it undertook to support the proposal. Because otherwise, it looks like another back of the envelope or table napkin solution that the MMDA is coming up with. And I think that just frustrates the public. I wrote the MMDA and asked them if they could explain or give us more detail about why they made this proposal and what analysis went into forming this proposal. If and when they answer, I will take that up in a future episode. So that's it, the end of another episode. If you have any comments, questions, photos, videos that you'd like to share with us, you can email us at rightofway@rappler.com or send us a message on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at rightofwayph. Until then, this is Vincent and I'm out of here. Stay safe on the road, guys.